Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about the undisputed lightweight fight between George Ferocious Kambosos and Devin the Dream Haney. I cannot wait for this fight. Let's get technical. First and foremost, let's talk about Devin Haney. His bread and butter really is his length and his ability to maintain distance. Devin Haney has really mastered the ability to maintain range with that lead hand. He can feint with it. He can pump out a powerful jab from the shoulder. He can get low and throw an up jab. He can lead with a hook even. So it's not just about the jab. It's the way that he uses the variety of that lead hand. And he'll kick off that back foot if he wants to produce some power. Otherwise, he's more focused on having a short step forward, a short kick forward, as he'll throw double jabs or potentially a left hook or potentially a jab to the solar plexus or a right hand to the solar plexus. But his weight is evenly distributed more often than not because he wants to be able to get out quite quickly. You see here, for instance, against Jorge Linares, he lands that right hook to the body and he's instantly focused on just getting back out. He wants to spring out as quickly as possible. He'll also keep that left hand forward often without throwing a jab, just like there, just pouring it into the face of Jojo Diaz to blind him. There's an obstacle in his eyesight, and then he came downstairs with a right hand to the solar plexus. So he's very, very clever at doing this. He's always looking to pivot out if you do get him up on the ropes, and he's just very, very good at maintaining range, but he's also very active with it. He's a high volume jabber. So not only do you have to think of a way to bypass that volume when nothing much is happening, even if he's just touching you, if you're not touching him at all, he's able to start racking up the rounds, right? And this is what he tends to like to do, and this is where he's very, very effective. Now, why could this have particular success against George Kambosos? Well, first and foremost, George Kambosos has a bit of an issue with his lateral footwork, particularly when he's moving to the left or when an opponent is changing direction from left to right really quickly, and like there. So you saw Mickey Bay was moving to the left, he quickly shifted it to the right. This little clip here is pinched from my own video from when I did the Kambosos Teofimo Lopez preview, and I was explaining how this is a potential error because he crosses his legs. You see that back foot coming past the line of that lead foot, and so while he does that, he's not really in a position where he's balanced, and so more often than not he's just out of range when he's doing it, but a lot of times he isn't. And in that scenario, a guy like Devin Haney, who does have that reach, may be able to be punching him with that jab just as his feet land as they're crossing over before he can reset. And that can really offset the rhythm of George Kambosos. Another issue that Kambosos potentially has is that in his last 3 fights, he's won them quite clearly. Yet all 3 fights were split decisions. Now, in this particular clip that I'm showing you, none of the jabs that either of these guys is throwing is actually landing. You can pause them, you can slow it down if you like. They're not landing. And yet, these fights have been scored as split decisions. But why is it that people are misinterpreting George Kambosos' defense? He does parry a lot of shots. You can see there, he caught the first one off the gloves, the second one off the elbow. That one he patted upwards. He's catching a lot on the gloves, a lot on the forearms. A lot of the jabs that do get past, he's just slipping and they just whisk by. I like that one. He slipped the first one, the second one he parried. Are the judges and perhaps the fans hearing some sort of connection on the gloves or seeing them whisk just an inch wide or catching on the gloves and assuming that these are scoring shots? If that's the case and he's up against a guy like Devin Haney, who's very consistent and very active with the jab, even if Devin Haney is having a lot of those jabs blocked, if he's able to maintain range and Kambosos isn't landing much in return, the judges could very well look at that and just assume that he's getting out jabbed essentially. He's getting outworked, even if a lot of those shots are not scoring shots. So that's a potential problem. So maybe Kambosos' style just doesn't translate well to the judges, and maybe that's why he's always been so underrated as well by the fans. But moving on from that, there is one area where Kambosos really does stand out in comparison to Devin Haney, and that is that he's a very varied counter puncher. He can counter punch off the front foot and off the back foot. Doesn't matter whether he's moving backwards and he's just going to stay just out of range and punish you for it, or whether he's going to stay right on the line of your range, just on the edge of range, and just slip a shot and land a combination of his own. He's not a monster puncher. You know, it's funny because a lot of the times in the narratives to the build up of this fight, I've seen a lot of people talk about Kambosos like he's a significant puncher and like Devin Haney is feather fisted. I actually don't buy into either of those narratives. I think that Devin Haney's got more than enough pop to keep a guy off, but I also believe that George Kambosos is not a big puncher, not a single puncher anyway, but he is very consistent with power shots that he lands, and he has dropped a series of opponents. He dropped Mickey Bay, he dropped Teofimo Lopez, he seriously hurt Selby, and he looked like he could have him in serious trouble, and the bell actually went very early in the round. I think it went after like 2 minutes in one particular round. But the point is, this is a guy who's hurting guys, but it's a lot more to do with the consistency and suddenness rather than the heavy-handedness. Nonetheless, it is varied in the sense that you can see he could just be just on the edge of range, wait for you to throw a shot, he'll slip that shot and land, or he can get on the back foot and he can make you miss and make you pay as a result of that. So he's very, very varied with his counter punching. He's very creative with it. He can box off the back foot and off the front foot. You see there how he just got on the back foot, just out of range, Teofimo Lopez's shots, and he counters. There he's in the pocket and he just slips to the side. There again, he slips to the side. And this is not an easy thing to do, right? The variety, look at that, the way he steps back there and then counters Mickey Bay. The variety of being able to box on the back foot and the front foot is excellent. So although we spoke about his issues with lateral footwork when directions are being changed quickly, his back and front foot game, moving in and out, is excellent. So that's one area where Kambosos could look to capitalize, particularly because Devin Haney has some defensive limitations inside the pocket. His defense is all about his legs, as we spoke about in the earlier clip. He's excellent at maintaining range, but if you are able to get close, he does have somewhat of a problem. And that is that he'll often keep his head on the line, he'll stay in a central position, and his feet will often come together. You see that uppercut there? He threw the uppercut and his head stayed on the line. Now, Jojo Diaz is going to notice that. We're going to talk about that again in a moment. But again, he throws that right hand. Look at his feet come together. He's squaring on. His head is on that line. It's not moving from that line. Again, he throws the uppercut. His head stays on the line. This time, Jojo Diaz reads it. So what does he do? From the outside, he throws a lead power shot down the pipe and he catches Devin Haney, who is obviously hurt. He feels that. Again, that was a big shot there that landed. And again, look at his feet. He'll tend to square on. Look how his feet come close together there. So everybody talks about Devin Haney's footwork. He makes errors when he's on the front foot or he's in the pocket. See how close his feet are coming in there? Now, Jojo Diaz and the likes of the opponents of Devin Haney have actually come in, whether it's Linares, whether it's Diaz, they've come in with quite a high guard and they've plodded forward. And they've looked to throw combinations when they have plodded forward, but ultimately they're not as active as Kambosos. They don't have that ability that he has to be just on the edge of range and then jump back and jump back in. Something that Dimitri Bivol did against Canelo. And I don't think Kambosos is quite as good at Bivol as doing that, because he can get hit. He does lead with that low left hand and he can get hit with a straight right hand down the pipe as a result. But he does have an excellent chin and he tends to take that shot and instantly fire back. The point is, he will put Devin Haney under a lot more pressure than the likes of Gamboa, Linares, who was also walking him down with a high guard and trying to throw those combinations once he was in. Jojo Diaz was doing something similar, and Haney was actually targeting the midriff of Diaz and keeping him at bay really easily early on, to be honest with you. And it was only later on that Jojo Diaz started to really close the range and cause a lot more issues. You see there how he tried to pivot out when he had his back up against the ropes, and again there his feet squared up against Linares. And when he is in that position and there his head's right up in the air again, his chin's in the air and he gets caught with a big left hook. Another straight long left hand down the pipe from Jojo Diaz. And Devin Haney doesn't have the defensive instincts when he's on the inside. Now, the other thing he does, when he sits in that pocket, he can get a little bit flat-footed, as I've shown you. His feet come square on. When he does do that, because his mobility is affected, he tends to do that. He tends to dip. He tends to come low. And from that dip, as you can see there, he can throw a lovely uppercut. You see it there again. So he's not completely useless when he's dipped. He's not a sit and duck or anything. But it's a consistent pattern. His mobility is affected. Maybe this is why Kambosos called him flat-footed in the build-up to this fight. A lot of people were confused by that. How can you call Devin Haney, of all people, flat-footed? Well, in the pocket, he is quite flat-footed. And this is perhaps what he was referring to. Now, why is this important to note? Well, first and foremost, we've spoken already about how good Kambosos is in the pocket with these varied combinations. But there's also an element to this area where he dips, where Devin Haney dips, that could also be something that Kambosos could target. And we'll get to that in a moment. You can also see how there are left hooks to the body from Linares, and indeed all the body shots really, and another one there, were affecting Devin Haney. But again, as you see, he likes to roll. He likes to come in that pocket, in that Philly shell, staying on the line quite upright, got caught with a big shot there, and he'll either roll side to side or he'll try and dip. There is no mobility with his feet, and his hand positioning isn't always great. So in the pocket, Devin Haney can certainly be affected. So the question is, can Kambosos close that range consistently enough to force Haney into these positions? Well, first and foremost, if Kambosos is able to get there, he is very, very good in the pocket. I want you to look at his head movement and things that he does. You see here, look at this example here. He lands a couple of hooks to the head. Another big one. So he started low, goes high, he steps just out of range, comes back inside, blocks that shot from Teofimo, comes underneath with another one, left hook to the body's blocked, comes with the right hand. Check this out. He steps out, Teofimo tries to follow him. Watch how he turns off the shoulder here, and then counters with the right hand. He is very, very good at these sorts of things, and he ends it off with a little left hook, and you can see that Teofimo Lopez on the end of the round there wasn't particularly stable on his feet, but he doesn't have to move backwards either. He can just roll under a shot as he does that there. He's very defensively responsible when he's throwing a lot of these combinations inside the pocket. It makes him very dangerous. He comes with these different trajectories of shots. They're not all wide shots, they're varied. He's got a beautiful uppercut, but he'll always move his head after the attack when he's on the inside. So while he can walk into range sometimes with that lead left hand low and get caught with the right hand as he's trying to enter the pocket, once he's in the pocket, the movement is very, very good. Now, additionally to that, the other thing with George Kambosos is his accuracy against the guy that uses a level change. So we spoke about how Devin Haney likes to dip. When that mobility is affected and his feet come together in the pocket and he's under pressure and he's having to work at a faster tempo than he's used to, they're not walking him down slowly, say, like Linares, like Gamboa, like Diaz was, like Zawa Abdullayev was. If he's forced to really work quickly, you could see how his feet sometimes can come in close together. And in that scenario, he likes to dip, and you can see how, look at the opponents of Kambosos when they take that choice to try and dip forward. You can see how he throw that uppercut off of the left jab. He can throw the right uppercut there, as you can see, and he'll follow it up with either a left hook or a push away with the left hand, or as you saw there when he threw the right uppercut, he pushed the opponent away. You see that roll again, by the way, under the power shot of Mickey Bay when he dropped him there. So that's what I mean about him being defensively responsible in the pocket. But the point is, there is again a little step back, lovely little uppercut, step back again, right hand as well this time down the pipe, a chopping right hand. Again, he's got Mickey Bay up against the ropes, but look how he's in and out. He's not just bundling in and losing his mind. He knows what he's doing in there. He's very accurate with that level change. So if he can force Haney to work at a tempo that he doesn't want to work at, he could force him potentially into errors. And if he's making errors with his feet and he's not particularly mobile, George Kambosos is better in the pocket. Now, let's quickly touch upon the weigh-in. He failed to make weight, George Kambosos. He initially came in at 0.3 pounds overweight, which is nothing significant. 140 grams, that's nothing. However, he tried to portray it as a mind game. He came out and he said, listen, this is the art of deception. It's the art of war. Let them think what they want to think. Maybe they're going to think I'm not ready, and so on and so forth. If that was true, you're not going to be coming out and telling your opponent that. You're going to let him walk away and think, oh man, Kambosos ain't ready. And really, you're as sharp as a sword and you're thinking, I'm ready to go. Let this guy think I'm weak. That's the art of deception. What you're not going to do is tell the guy, oh, I'm trying to deceive you. He also turned up late to the weigh-in. Why did he turn up late to the weigh-in? Was it just because that was a genuine mind game and he wanted to keep Devin Haney waiting and show that he owns the gaff and he'll do what he wants when he wants? Or is it a scenario whereby he woke up, they knew they were struggling to make the weight, and so he had to start working earlier? He had a workout maybe. He was trying to get the weight down and he was struggling all day. Maybe that would explain why they reacted the way they reacted. Look at him when he makes the weight. There's a roar among the crowd. Look at the guy in the background jumping up and down, hands in the air. His father, who's a very funny and very intense character. Very nice guy he comes across as, actually. But when someone puts it on him, he's ready to go. He wants all that smoke. There he is, giving the middle finger up to the team, to Team Haney, particularly one individual who was very aggressive. We'll discuss that in a moment. But the point is, he seems to be very, very fired up for making the weight, for a guy that was just playing mind games, or for a guy that simply had an oversight with a scale in the hotel room that was just inaccurate, right? So this is a concern for Kambosos, because he's a guy that relies on his intensity and his pressure late on. He comes on strong. He reads your patterns. He brings that counter punching into play, and he tends to finish strongly, whereas sometimes he might start a little bit slowly where he's trying to read your patterns. He might not have that luxury if he's going to tire, right? And if he does fall behind because he's struggling to get past that long jab early on, that could be a potential problem for him. Now, moving on from that, a lot of people are saying, well, George Kambosos can't possibly lose the fight on points in Australia because he's got the hometown advantage. It's going to be a controversial decision if he wins it anyway, so who cares, right? He's not losing those belts unless he gets stopped. I don't actually agree with that. I see things a little bit differently. To me, power is what trumps home advantage. See, George Kambosos is with Lou DiBella, and Devin Haney is with Bob Arum. There's no doubt about who the more powerful promoter is. There's no doubt who has more influence. And we'll get to this little picture that you can see on your screen in just a moment. But first and foremost, let me make this case. If George Kambosos wins this fight, he has been saying he wants to take out the four kings. So he may go after Tank Davis. He may go after Ryan Garcia. Tank is with PBC. Ryan Garcia is with Golden Boy. He's also said he wants Lomachenko. Lomachenko would be the logical next step. He belongs to Top Rank, and he was trying to make that fight. So yes, he could potentially fight another Top Rank fighter. However, there is that possibility that he goes down the other route. Whereas if Devin Haney wins, he's contracted for the rematch to fight again with Top Rank. Then if he was to win the rematch too, he then has to fight another fight with Top Rank. If he stays at this weight category, that enables the Lomachenko fight to occur, or a Shakur Stevenson fight to occur. If that was not to happen and he could not make the weight, or he wanted to move up, he could move up and fight Teofimo Lopez, another top-ranked fighter. Now, if he was to fight Lomachenko for argument's sake and lose, Lomachenko could then fight Shakur Stevenson. So whichever way you look at it, the belts and the money get kept with Top Rank. So if you're Top Rank, who do you want to win this fight? If you are the powerful, influential promoter, who do you want to win this fight? You want your guy to win the fight. These are promoters that are refusing to even work with each other when it comes to cross-promotional fights. You really think that Top Rank would want Kambosos taking those belts away potentially to another promoter where he could lose the belts? Imagine he was to go over to PBC and he was to fight Tank and he lost against Tank. You think Tank's ever going to fight Devin Haney or Vasyl Lomachenko? He hasn't fought him all these years. He's going to fight him now if he's the one that's got all the belts? Top Rank don't want that to happen. Now, you add to that fact that if you're talking about money, yes, Kambosos may be the A side right now, but if you're talking about potential upside in the future, you've got an American fighter here. You think about the massive rivalries that you can build up domestically. Like I said, Teofimo Lopez, potentially Tank Davis, if they did want to do a cross-promotional thing, right? Shakur Stevenson, who belongs to them, like I said. These are big, big money fights, which means more sanctioning fees for the governing bodies too. And as you can see from this picture, whenever there's some sort of face-off, whether it's at a weigh-in or a press conference, you always seem to have the A-side's representative, somebody from their team, a promoter or someone like that, center stage. When it's Tank Davis, you can see it's Leonard Ellaby there. When it's Shakur Stevenson, you can see Bob Arum front and center. Eddie Hearn, the same thing with Anthony Joshua. Bernard Hopkins representing Golden Boy with Ryan Garcia. This guy is a henchman of Devin Haney, a cheerleader, a guy that's been very aggressive with Team Kambosos. He tried to get in the face of his father. He pushed someone's arm away as well. He's, like I said, been cheerleading from the sidelines, insulting Kambosos. That guy who's barely out of the picture is Lou DiBella. Had this promoter had massive influence, like any of the other guys that you can see on this page, you really think this random dude would have been front and center? He wouldn't have been front and center. It would have been Lou DiBella. But it appears as though the power's lying with Haney, does it not? Just that face value. Forget the logic I've spoken to you about already. Think about the face value here. So here's what I believe will happen. Either George Kambosos will bypass that long-range jab early and be able to get inside consistently. And if that happens, you will see a great firefight, because I believe Devin Haney has more power than people give him credit for, but he is vulnerable for the reasons that I've spoken about. He is physically strong, so he might want to try to tie up Kambosos. He can fight on the inside if he ties a guy up, but he's not an expert at it. And sometimes he can leave one arm of the opponent's free when he doesn't want to be working. So that's not ideal for him. So if Kambosos can get inside consistently, I believe in reality, he will win the fight. Whether he gets the decision or not, if it's close, that's another story. I could reckon this could end up being a controversial decision, but the other way than most people are expecting it. However, if Kambosos fails to close the range before, say, the 5th round, if after 5 rounds, Devin Haney is 4-1 up or something like that, I believe George Kambosos is going to struggle to close the gap that's been generated by Devin Haney. He's going to need a knockout, and I don't believe he's the puncher that a lot of people think he is. Haney has looked vulnerable, and Kambosos is more incessant than anybody else that Haney has faced. So I wouldn't be stunned if Kambosos was to get the stoppage. But the point is here, I think he needs a good start. Whoever makes the good start, I believe, wins this fight. It's a 50-50 fight. But if it is close, I believe it will go to Haney. I think Kambosos has to win this pretty big to get the decision. I may be wrong. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you think the fight's going to go. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.